Good. Thank you all for joining us today for On the Menu. My name is Alicia Josie, and I am the program coordinator for the Research Triangle Park. On the Menu happens every month, and this month we are sponsored by Alta Davis. So thank you to them for the sponsorship. They are a luxury apartment complex in RTP, so check them out if you're looking for an apartment. During this presentation, please stay muted just so we can limit the background noise. This is going to be recorded, but don't worry, your face will not be on there as a participant. So we're going to use the chat to ask some questions to Alexus that she's going to answer at the end. So let's just go ahead and get the chat started. Since we're going to be talking about branding and storytelling, if everybody can just type in the chat one word that describes their brand. Okay, Nancy said quirky, nature-based, Holly, ecological, community-focused. Nice, hardworking. All right, I'm glad that chat feature is working. So if you have any questions throughout, just go ahead and put it in the chat. Alexus will get to those at the end. There is going to be a portion of her presentation, and it's going to have a mic on the screen. And whenever you see the mic on the screen, Alexus is inviting you to actually unmute and audibly answer and interact. So now it's time to introduce Alexus. So Alexus is a writer, a producer, and an artistic theologian. She had a bachelor's in journalism and public relations and a master's in theology. So everyone, please welcome Alexus Rhone.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you, RTP, for this invitation. Listen, I am excited to be able to discuss with you or to just share briefly, and I want to be careful that I have to do a lot of different things. I have to do pedagogy, I have to do practicum, and then a Q&A, and all of that in a little bit of time. For those of you who were privileged to sign on early, you got to see storytelling modeled. I'm not able to break down all of it, like my workshops are normally like 2 to 3 hours. And so I have like a finite amount of time. Thank you for spending your lunchtime with me on this day. And again, the workshop is recorded, so you'll be able to go back and replay the story playlist. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so I want you to know that every life is a brand, and there are 5 stories that every brand must be able to tell. And for those of you who are in any way spiritually intuitive or practitioners of faith, you will recognize the 5 stories that I have highlighted: Genesis, Exodus, Desert Wanderer, Prophetic Hope, Pinnacle Peak. They have that sort of faith-based connection, because what I am going to make the case here over the next 58 minutes is that you do not have to divorce from yourself, your life, your brand, any part of who you are. In fact, your story is the best way of integrating all aspects of who you are. Your path to thriving is complex, but let's break it down into bite-sized narratives. Now, there's one thing that my storytelling professor, the very first storytelling workshop I took years ago, used to say. It was her first lecture, and the first sentence of this lecture, she would always begin with this: the stories you tell will tell on you. Now, some people feel like that's like, oh Lord, I want to keep my stuff private. But in the case of your brand narratives, that's what you want. This is a list of, or a snapshot of the first stories that I told when I chose to come out and to share with the world the gifts of my insight via story. And we're going to be talking about this particular imprint. First story I chose to tell was called Premature Pleasures. It's the story of an 11-year-old who looks like she's 15 or 16, hooks up with a scandalous group of 15 and 16-year-old girls one summer in an apartment complex. The parents are working, the children are home alone, unsupervised, and there is trauma. And you're watching this 11-year-old hook up with these wild teenage girls, and you're watching her get sucked into this, and you're like, no, somebody please rescue her. And she gets rescued. There's a woman from a church down the street named Miss Denise. She's in her early 20s. She comes to the apartment complex. wearing these positive, inspirational t-shirts and these little white shorts. And the first thing she hosts is a vacation Bible school. And it's so popular, then the apartment complex says, hey, come back and do some other programming. And so she does this weekly Jesus at the Clubhouse, like a sidewalk Sunday school type thing. And everyone loves her, but you're watching her really try to figure out how to get into my main character's life. And once that connection is made, all of the negative influences are flipped by the power of that one person who chooses to show up. That's the story I chose to tell when I wanted to show up in the world as a storyteller. The stories you tell will tell on you. Now, here's just a snapshot of some of the live events that I produced, and you'll notice they have a range of different content. Although I began storytelling as a voice for reluctant reading teens and preteens in an urban context, you see a lot of this stuff is also very adult oriented. Celebration LA, Celebration Dallas, worshiping through story. So there's some spiritual content as well, being a part of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. I do have a weekly live stream called Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine at Vespers. It's a faith and adult storytelling series. And I am currently on hiatus. I'm coming to you right now, as a matter of fact. Love technology, FYI. Blessings to everyone who paid attention in their math and science classes, and they give us this wonderful opportunity. I'm coming to you from Houston, Texas, where I've been since the holidays, and I'll be returning to Raleigh next week. I believe is when I start my journey back. But in any case, I'm on hiatus until then. But once I get back going, I'm looking forward to getting this series back up and running, a faith and adult storytelling. Hashtag the Bounce Back RDU was something I produced for City of Raleigh Juneteenth. And was an awesome thing. And I also tell stories on stage, Page Stage, Scream Web podcast. So that is a snapshot of who I am. And this is what the 5 signature stories are, the 5 brand stories that you need to tell. Again, Genesis story, Exodus story, Desert Wanderer story, Prophetic Hope story, and your Pinnacle Peak story. Each one of these stories, brand stories, you're going to answer a question. Now, I'm going to model this through the first business that I began, the first brand that I founded, Unshackled Publishing, the imprint that publishes my YA series for reluctant reading teens and preteens, again, for those within an urban context. So I'm going to use the 5 stories to talk with you about the 5 brand stories for Unshackled Publishing, Unshackled Truth, Unshackled Stories. First story for Unshackled Publishing is the Genesis story. And in the Genesis story, you answer the question in the beginning, what sparked your passion? On screen, you see that there is a picture of Alice Childress's book called Rainbow Jordan. Now, here's what happened. When I was 11 years old, I was a 7th grader. I was in middle school. And I grew up reading books and going to the library and all of that kind of thing, and was an avid reader up until I got to middle school. And what I found was my middle school experience was not accurately captured in any of the content that was on the library shelves, or so I thought. So I would, I knew how to read. I just described myself as a non-reader. And then I received a recommendation from my sister friend, Renee Merchant Porter. She actually is a retired librarian now. We're middle school students in Missouri City, Texas. She hands me this book by Alice Childress called Rainbow Jordan. Rainbow Jordan was a story of a 14-year-old in Harlem, New York. And she was the daughter of a go-go dancer. Now, go-go dancers are like old school strippers. Strippers of today go to strip clubs, but the go-go dancers would have to travel to different private parties, and that's how she would make her money. So she would leave Rainbow at home for months at a time, but she would come back, with enough money to sustain them for 3 to 6 months. And when Rainbow was young, she would have to go into a foster care, like someone would be roaming, see this child at home alone, and would take her to this one particular foster family. So that was fine when she was younger, but when she got older, she's now 14, she's in high school. And her mama not being at home, gives her a greater opportunity to get into some other stuff. And she has this boyfriend, 16 years old, who is trying to pressure her to be the first person that she has sex with. And so there's all of this, this tension, this madness. And my thoughts were like, wait a minute, they got this kind of real life stuff happening in books. So the first thing I did was I read Rainbow Jordan cover to cover. And then I read everything that Alice Childress wrote. And before I knew it, I was no longer identifying as a reluctant reader. I was now an avid reader. And I was searching the library shelves for books with interesting titles, with interesting storylines, with characters that looked like me. That is what pulled me into the reading family. So when I chose to show up on the scene as a storyteller, I wanted to pull in reluctant reading teens and preteens who were turned off by the fact that nothing that was recommended to them looked like them. I was on a mission to change that in the way that it changed for me. And this book changed my life. It made me an avid reader. Everything that's going to happen in your life, a good part of it is going to be found. The solutions are going to be found in a book. I needed for all of my reluctant readers to find their way to books in order to find their way to solutions. In the beginning, what sparked my passion? The fact that I was a reluctant reader, and this book changed the course of my life. And through books, I wanted to change the course of others. It's my Genesis story. Second brand story is Exodus story. Now, the Exodus story is the story that answers the question, what was the catalyst that caused you to exit the safety zone and launch your dream? Well, the year was 2000. It was January 5th, 2000, as a matter of fact, the first working day of the new millennium. I had been out of college about 8 years at that point. I was working in human resources as a recruiter, and I had to build relationships with nonprofits, with universities, with staffing organizations. I had to be very proactive in getting the best type of candidate. And as a result, I built a lot of relationships, and I was on a lot of different panels, and there was a lot of visibility. Well, on one of the panels was the HR director, senior HR director for a company in Houston that everyone wanted to work for at the time. If you had this company on your resume, then you could write your own ticket. And I am on this panel with her. She is blown away by how I'm showing up. She hands me her business card and she says, I need to have a meeting with you. She's with the organization that everyone wants to work with. So I'm like, of course, I'm going to take that meeting. I take the meeting. I get an offer. And on the first day, working day of the new millennium, I am convinced that I am about to soar and everything in my life is going to change for the absolute better, because I now have this working relationship with them. I have them on my resume. This organization, ladies and gentlemen, was Enron North America. Now, the thing about Enron is that they never did anything low budget. Everything was always over the top. I report for new hire orientation, not in the HR conference room. No, I reported at a resort, a five-star hotel that was around the corner from the corporate headquarters. And for our new hire orientation, all of us who were hired and began on that first day of the new millennium, first working day of the new millennium, we were treated to breakfast on fine china and linen cloths. And one of the executives was the one who did our orientation, and he gives this whole rah-rah speech. And he's saying, you are the best of the best, and that is why you are working for us. We only hire the best of the best. He says, we have been recognized by Forbes magazine as the most innovative company for the past 4 years, and that trend will continue because you are here with us, and you're going to help ensure that that legacy continues. He's going on, gassing up about the opportunities, about the stock options, about all of the everything that's good that they are doing. We are now a part of that, and so I'm excited. I leave the new hire orientation, go into the employee parking garage. I'm driving a convertible red Mustang, but I go into the employee garage, and I'm now flanked by dozens of silver Porsches. That was kind of that was how they rolled it Enron. Every year during their bonus season, there was a uptick in Porsche sales, silver Porsches. And so I felt like real diminished. I have like this little red convertible, Ford Mustang. And I'm just like, I feel dwarfed in that space. But I'm like, I'm getting me a Porsche too. It's coming, it's coming. Walk into the corporate headquarters. Everything is posh, polished marble floor, the floor to ceiling windows. The only art that's in the building is the crooked letter E. That's the only art that's in there. And I'm there in the elevator lobby, waiting to go up to the 27th floor. Get on the elevator, stop like 20 times. But when I finally get to the 27th floor, the elevator crowd has thinned out, and I'm able to see the plaque that's on the wall. It's a plaque with the 4 core values of Enron, 2 of which were ethics and integrity. I get off at the 27th floor, enter the hallway, and I'm stopped by one of my new colleagues. And he says, "Your name is Alexus, right?" And I say, "Yes." And he says, "You're just coming over from," and he names the investment firm I just come from. And I was like, "Yes." He says, "Well, I'm about to test your value as a recruiter." He says, "Did you bring the employee directory from your investment firm?" I said, "No, our employee directory was online." We thought about it for a minute, and then he moves out of the way and he lets me continue on. But then also I'm thinking, and also like that's proprietary information. Like I can't just steal their content and bring it over to my new organization. I turn right and immediately find that there is a library of corporate directories that are there at Enron. They are not under lock and key. There is no shame. If anyone in the department needs to hire a position, they simply go to the library, do some research, thumb through some directories, and they have the person's name, number, address, email address, their phone number. And they call them and they say, "Hey, we have this opportunity at Enron. Like, are you interested in talking with us?" It was that easy. It was too easy. But within my first hour, I'm thinking, integrity and ethics. There are 3 people at Enron who I will never forget. And I think about them often in regards to my time at Enron and everything that ultimately happened. The first was the HR director or executive who was on a rotation. You see, she had been recruited from an investment firm in New York, and she'd been recruited by Enron's CEO, Ken Lay. And he said to her, "Hey, listen, we're going to put you like on the executive floor, but we need for you to do a rotation, 1-year rotation in HR first." And so she was not an HR professional, but she was learning sort of the Enron culture, and she needed to start in HR. And I'll never forget her saying that, "Yeah, I'm just kind of biding my time here, this 1 year, in HR. But, in a year or so, I'm going to be on the, I'm going to be in the penthouse and be at the top floor." And I thought, wow, in 1 year, huh? All right. Second person was a marketing manager. She'd been with the company about 15 years, beautiful person. And she had trained as a broadcast journalist, which was what she really wanted to do. However, she hired on at Enron early on, and she got hooked in with the bonuses and the steady paychecks. And she was doing quite well. But she described the experience as being shackled by velvet handcuffs. And she's like, "I'm making too much money now to give this up. So I'm gonna ride it out and I'll see what the end will bring." The third person, though, was the one that I think about the most. She had been with Enron over 20 years. She was an admin assistant. She loved the company. She spoke highly of the bonus program and of the stock options. She'd been there for 23 years, and she had taken every bonus that she'd received and bought more Enron stock. And as a result, she was sitting on a $1.3 million retirement portfolio that was primarily Enron stock. Her plan was to retire in 1 year, a millionaire, and go and live her dream. What she would not know is that a year and some, Enron would be no more, and neither would her job. And that $1.3 million investment portfolio, it's all gone. I think about those three and I wonder, what was it that they did not see that I saw my first hour? Ethics and integrity for me was more than 15 letters on a plaque. And even though silver Porsches are very persuasive, as are $1.3 million investment portfolios, all of that is quite persuasive. But what is also persuasive is the fact that ethics and integrity were more than statements. They were more than letters on a plaque for me. And so I got, within the first hour of my employment at Enron, just to like like something is going on here. And I couldn't shake that. I didn't know what was going to happen in the end, but I just knew that there was more that was happening with me in that reality. So I chose to leave Enron, but before I left, I took a storytelling workshop. And I excelled in that space. And I decided that what I wanted to do was to take a year off and to write my first, to write a story, to write a book based on the gifts of my insight, a coming of age story that I felt like would pull in reluctant reading teens and preteens. And so after about 5 months with Enron, I'd completed the workshop, I'd done all of that. I resigned. A year and 1 month from my resignation, May 2001, I was attending my national book release party. 2 months after that, all of my colleagues at Enron would be laid off. And they would, the scam was up. Enron remained at the top of the news cycle until September 11, 2001, when our nation came under terrorist attack. That was the story that knocked Enron off the headlines. What was the catalyst that caused me to exit the safety zone and launch my dream? The fact that Enron executive had told me that I was the best of the best. And I chose to believe him, but not allow him to dictate what the rest of my life would look like. I gambled on myself and I'm winning. My exodus story. The third brand story is the Desert Wanderer story. And then with the Desert Wanderer story, it's, I love this story because it is where you answer the question, what was the first and most dramatic situation where things didn't go the way you planned? I had a good on paper plan. When I launched Unshackled Publishing and released the first book, Premature Pleasures, I immediately hit regional bestsellers list all over the region where I was promoting the story. I was getting book signings, I was getting interviews. There was a lot of talk about this, the way that I was showing up as a storyteller. And I was able to leverage all of that. So I'm like, yes, my trajectory is going up, 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 up. But remember, I launched right before the 9/11 attack happened. When 9/11 hit, everything tanked. The country was in an emotional depression, financial depression. I was able to write the book, take a year off because I was married at the time, and my husband had just gotten 3 different promotions, and his salary, covered both of our salaries, like in this really short period of time. And so I was like, hey, I'm winning at life. And then 9/11 hits, and then he loses his job. And in addition to him being unemployed, he also went into a very deep, dark depression where I was not sure how to get him out of it. And what I realized was that, okay, I've been out of the game for a bit. And so I don't know that I want to return to human resources, but I am a writer now. And I write for reluctant reading teens and preteens. And so what did I do? I began to get contracts with school districts to serve as their writer in residence, specifically focused on students who were reluctant readers and reluctant writers. I had built a strategy. I had camaraderie. I knew exactly how to reach them. I thought I was on a different trajectory, and now I am the breadwinner, and I'm having to help someone, my husband at the time, who was severely depressed. And I'm like, okay, how do I meet him where he is? Things were not working out the way we planned. I was now the breadwinner. And if anyone has ever worked for a school district, you know that you're not going to make a ton of bread. But I made enough for us to continue sleeping indoors and eating every day. Desert Wanderer story. Fourth brand story, Prophetic Hope. All is not lost. In the Prophetic Hope story, you answer the question, who was the person that reminded you of what was possible and encouraged you to stay the course? Now, for me, that goes back to when I was a third year. I was just completing my third year at the University of Texas at Austin, journalism student with an emphasis in public relations. And I was going to be the first in my family to complete college. I only had 1 year left. But friends, I was tired. I was tired of being unsupported. I was tired of being broke. I was just tired. And I was like, you know, there is too much money to be made here in Austin. All of these, corporate headquarters, these big companies, I can just drop out and go and get a job with them. And so at the time I had an apartment in South Austin, and I was like 1 or 2 exits from the Lockheed Austin division, their regional headquarters in Austin. It's 2 exits down. And so I thought, you know what? I can go and get a job as an assembly line worker. I'll make $10 an hour. I'll get benefits. I'll be independent. I won't be broke anymore. Like, okay, this is the life that I want. So that summer, I go to the Lockheed Human Resources Department. I complete my application. On the application, it asks what job you want. I say assembly line worker. Asks how much you want to work, how much you want to make. Say $10 an hour plus benefits. I always put the plus benefits. And then it asks you about your education. And so I disclose that I have just completed my 3rd year as a public relations journalism student at the University of Texas at Austin. Submit my application. A week later, I receive a call from the public relations manager for Lockheed. You see, the HR manager had given her my application, and she invited me to come in for an interview for an internship. And we go through the interview, and then she tells me, okay, I would like to offer you this internship. She says, now this is not a part of my budget. I didn't submit this in my budget, so I won't be able to give you a bi-week. I won't be able to put you on a bi-weekly salary. However, I would like to offer you a scholarship. Now, to get an internship with a scholarship meant one thing. I had to stay in school. So at first the internship was just supposed to be for the 1 semester. And so I completed it, and she loved me so much that she kept me on for my final semester in college. She doubled the scholarship. Who was the person that reminded me of what was possible and encouraged me to stay the course? It was actually the HR manager for Lockheed, the Austin division, who turned my application in to the PR manager. And neither of them have any idea how they rescued my future. Because you see, everything that's happened since then has required that I have a college degree. And they were the ones who made that possible. The 5th and final brand story, and the Pinnacle Peak story, it asks this question. Describe a time you created a plan, you were tempted to settle for the grand view, but you chose to press forward to reach the Pinnacle Peak. Here's that 5th and final story. Now that I'm serving as a writer in residence on one of the high school campuses, one for high school district, and again, my target population are reluctant readers and reluctant writers. And we have a very tight bond. They are trusting my strategies, they're implementing, and they are coming up. All of their skills are going higher. Well, for one of the campuses, I had this idea that on Fridays when we didn't have class, but there were still students that were on campus, I wanted to take a group of girls who had read my book, and they, kind of knew me, and, just kind of building this camaraderie. I wanted to take them on a hike in this area of North Scottsdale, this mountain range called Pinnacle Peak. It's an actual hiking trail. And I wanted to take them out of the South Phoenix community, South Mountains community. I wanted to take them to Pinnacle Peak, and I just wanted to expose them to this different area. And so we're on the hike, and it's a pretty short hike, but it's also slightly strenuous. Kind of, I think they describe it as a moderate trail. It's not easy. So the girls are complaining, oh, when are we getting to the top? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, come on, we got it, you got it, you got it. So we get to this section called the Grand View. Now, the Grand View has a bunch of stone seats. And with the stone seats, there is also this all of the other mountain ranges you could look out at. You see the White Tank Mountains, and but it's like this little plateaued area. And so I'm giving them a brief respite. And I say to them, listen, we started this hike with the intentions of going to the Pinnacle Peak, which is the top, the highest, most point on this hike. Now, we don't have that much further to go. I've done this hike a number of times. You can trust my insight, or you can remain here at the Grand View. I'm going to let you choose, but I'm going on to the Pinnacle Peak. All but 2 girls chose to go with me to the Pinnacle Peak. Now, what they didn't know was that it literally was just like, not like maybe 50 yards more or something. It was really, really close. And so when they saw how close we were, and when we get to the Pinnacle Peak and we see the milestone marker, we're taking pictures and they're so excited. We get back down to the Grand View, and they're telling the other 2 girls who chose to stay at the Grand View, oh my God, y'all, we were almost there. Y'all should have come. Y'all should have come. And then the 2 girls were like, well, can we go now? I was like, no, it's time for us to go back to campus. I got to get y'all back, before the school bell rings. And so we leave. Sometimes we are closer than we think. And even when we're not, we don't know how far close is, but we don't ever settle for the Grand View. We always go for the Pinnacle Peak because that's what we set our trajectory for. Now, for everyone who was able to tune in before we started the official program, before we started the workshop, you were able to see a playlist of videos. And in each one of those videos, before the next video came up, there were 3 questions that I answered. And these are the 3 questions of storytelling. For every story that we have, because we all have a ton of stories, there are 3 questions that we will always answer before selecting what specific story to tell. First question, who am I? Second question, who is my audience? And third, how do I want them to respond? The story map is, because we don't have we can't really get into this. Oh my God, I wish I could tell y'all this. There are several different ways to structure the story to keep you from telling your whole life stories. Like we don't have that much time. You got, 6 to 8 minutes, no more than 10. And then in rare occasions, sometimes people will give you more depending on the level of details of the story and also how many people are on tap for the story. But the one that I want to model for you today is the anatomy of a story. And I'm going to just use my Genesis story to just kind of show you how to format stories so that you can keep it focused and central to the story that you want to tell. Now you see there on the bottom, it says background context. So for my Genesis story, background context just gives us like the background of like what's about to happen. I'm 11 years old. I'm a reluctant reader. I knew how to read. I just hated to read. I'm in middle school and none of the books look like me or sound like me. The catalyst is where you say, but one day, that's when things are about to shift. So one day, my friend Renee Merchant Porter gave me a book, Rainbow Jordan. And then you see the drama goes up, 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 up. I read the book. I'm engrossed. I give you a snapshot of what's in the book. I'm so in love with this book and I'm in love with this writer. I read everything that she's written. It's going higher and higher and higher. And then the climax is at what point, like this is where there is no more drama. There's like, okay, something is about to shift. So what has shifted for me in the climax in this Genesis story? What shifted is I am no longer a reluctant reader, and I'm no longer even a reader that has to read books where the characters look like me or sound like me. What am I now? I'm now a reader. And how is this resolved? Well, I remember that space. I remember that experience. I remember how it felt. And I have resolved to give other reluctant reading teens and preteens within an urban context that same experience. Now, here's the exercise that I want you to do. Alicia started us off with a question where she asked you to state one word that described your brand. I also participated in that, and I responded that my brand is reverently irreverent. I am an artistic theologian. I use art to explore the mystery of how God shows up or his perceived absence, and I tell these stories in as many different diverse platforms as I can: page, stage, screen, web, podcast, radio. That is one way of me self-identifying, but here's who I am, call it in pictures. I am a playwright. Again, I tell stories on all different platforms. There I am as a playwright. This was the closing show for Premature Pleasures when I translated it for stage. I'm also an executive producer in that space. I write for reluctant reading teens and preteens. I go out into these spaces. Well, pre-pandemic, would go and do talks. But also, I am the wounded healer. There's a picture of me in front of a labyrinth, a prayer labyrinth, and I realized that this picture was taken when I was so linear in how I saw life. And the prayer labyrinth was a very powerful tool for me, because whereas a maze is all about hitting a wrong spot and then having to retrace your steps and go back and try another way, the labyrinth says, keep going. Keep going. Yes, you're going to hit a grand view. Yes, you're going to feel like you're further from the goal that you're trying to reach, but keep going. That's what I love about this. And I am able to, from all of my life's travels, all my journeys, where I have won, where I have learned from where I have failed, I self-identify as a wounded healer. I open my wounds in my life for others. Who are you? In answering that question, I am asking that you do two things. The first is that you be fearless, but also that you tell the truth about who you are, even if your voice shakes. Now, I'm going to go back to the screen of who am I? That is the practicum that I want you to take 7 minutes to write as many different responses to who are you? Answering that question, who am I? Answer the question, who am I? Who is your brand? Who are you in your brand? Who are you in general, so that we have a connection to why you chose that particular brand, that particular product, that particular service. There are so many things that are happening in that question, who am I? I am going to set the timer for, oh my God, okay, let's do 5 minutes. If we can just do 5 minutes, and that'll give us time for me to open the mic. So 5 minutes starting now, and I have the timer set.
All right, I'm gonna hang up on you. I need things to do.
Okay. Speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. Who's going to tell us who they are? How did you answer that question? Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat. But the mic is now open. Who are you? How did you respond?
Hi, I'm Lori. I'm happy to chime in.
Hey, Lori.
So I'm a bunch of different things. So at work, so my company, we work with researchers to develop effective and attractive reports. So I'm part scientist. I'm a research psychologist. I am a really logical person, and I really love order and doing things systematically, but I'm also an artist. So I design, and I love arts and crafts and making things look beautiful and tidy. And so I sort of balance that in my professional life.
I can see all of that, especially when you said like the understanding the aesthetics of scientific data. For those of us, like I call it, you're a translator.
Yes.
And it is so important to aesthetically understand how to get how that information needs to be received, and for the person who understands aesthetics, as well as the importance of the truth of the data. It's like I don't know, I'm hearing perfect. I'm hearing you paid attention. I'm hearing you paid attention in math, science, English, language arts. You did all of the things. I love it.
I will say, I didn't think I was going to be a scientist. I thought I was going to be a therapist. So, and I'm a social scientist, so I'm not, measuring things in beakers or going out into the field and collecting animals. It's more out of trying to understand
but understanding statistics
Yes.
as well, like how all of that data. So so you are like you're scientist. Like I am taking nothing from you. So please don't take anything from yourself. Like you're all the
definitely
things.
definitely not perfect, but multifaceted.
I should probably say you were the perfect student. Tell me that. Tell me I'm not. Tell me that's. I know that's the truth. I know it. All of your teachers loved you.
I did pretty well in school. My younger sisters never let me forget it.
And neither will I. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming in. Okay, others. Who are you? Anyone else?
I'll answer right now. My name is Treat, and I will say I am an unemployed fundraiser, and I am at my core a community connector. So I feel right now a little thwarted in my need to connect people, and that's kind of my overriding, like, who I am right now, trying to figure out what direction I want to go next in my life.
What led you into a fundraising? I'm curious, because I hear the community connection part. I'm trying to get deeper into the question of who am I, so I can, like, there's some richness there. Oh my God, you got a ton of stories I can already hear.
Well, what got me into fundraising was I decided, I had been in the for-profit sector, and I decided, this is many years ago, 25, 26 years ago, I wanted to give back to the world. And so I have crazy ideas. So I've been kind of downwardly mobile through my life, but I have had wonderful jobs.
I love that you said downwardly mobile. I'm going to do something with that downwardly. Are you quoting somebody? I need to be sure I'm quoting them.
No, I'm just saying, like, I started at a certain place in my life when I was growing up in New York, and I have worked in the nonprofit sector now for a long time, and many years in the arts, also education, and community nonprofits. They just, they don't pay that much. So I've come to accept that, but but I do love the feeling of getting people connected to a good cause. And I can only work for a nonprofit that I really, really believe in, because I kind of throw myself into it. But yeah, but I'm thinking, I just turned 60 and I'm thinking my mother's 94. So I'm like, I got another 30 years.
Longevity.
I gotta have another career, right? I gotta do something different. So yeah, I'm kind of exploring where I can put my energy that will satisfy my need to connect people and do, community outreach, but also maybe not be quite as enervating. The nonprofit sector has kind of sucked me dry, I feel like, after all these years.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And even that, oh my God, oh, Treats, you have like so many stories, but even the use of the term downwardly mobile, it has such integrity. When we're thinking about, everyone else is like, woohoo, what to shoot. Kind of like what happened with me at Enron. I was convinced I was about to sail through the cosmos. Like my life was set. All things, everything was great for me. And ethics and integrity was just too much for me to ignore. And I had, like, again, within the first hour, a clue that they were not on the straight and straight. And so I didn't know what would happen. And I certainly didn't expect it to happen the way it did, or as fast as it did. But I never forgot that it happened, and that it happened to Enron, and it happened with to people with whom I was in close proximity. And remembering what it felt like for me to be accused of, that's why I wrote the term downwardly mobile. When I chose to leave Enron, that was a decision that people thought I was making. I was making the choice to be downwardly mobile, to gamble on myself. Oh my goodness. Enron has said that you are the best of the best. Why on earth won't you ride that gravy train? Like, you are choosing a downwardly mobile path. I was choosing my path.
Right. I love that. Thank you. I love that spin. And you use the word integrity. My two favorite words now are authenticity and integrity.
Absolutely.
And I'm with you on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, blessing your journey, Treat, and that you will get all the solutions for the next 38 years.
Please put me on your prayer list. Thank you.
I will. Got you covered. Thank you, Treat. Okay. We have time for one more. Who are you? One more.
I'll be happy to go.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. So my name is Delvin Burton, and I consider myself a modern day Renaissance man in the spirit of Paul Robeson. I am an activist. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an athlete. And in that, I'm also a son of the South. I was born and raised in the wards and the suburbs of Houston, Texas.
Oh my God, I'm in Houston now. I'm in Missouri City. What? Which ward?
Third ward, third and fifth ward. As well as Acres Homes when you move out to the south. So I mean to the north. Currently, I own 2 indoor cycling studios, one in New Jersey, as well as one in Cary, North Carolina. Servicing individuals who are in the Research Triangle Park and other areas surrounding the Cary area, adjacent areas to Cary. So in addition to that, and I mentioned I'm an activist, I do work in leadership development and personal development. So I coach and I lead others to be the best version of themselves. And so that's who I am.
Oh my goodness, you are. So I need to confess my filter when you said, now I know I got excited about like Houston, like when you said the wards, I was like, wait a minute, now what do you know about the wards? It's some like, I'm thinking maybe Houston and New Orleans, and you said Houston, I was like, ah! But I really ignited when you said Paul Robeson. I have been reading the biography of Lorraine Hansberry, written by Imani Perry, called Looking for Lorraine. And I'm getting a lot, and I just finished the biography on James Baldwin, written by his assistant, David Lemer. And so in both biographies, they do a lot. I think in Lorraine Hansberry's biography, there's a lot more that's devoted to Paul Robeson. And all of the ways that when you said like activist, artist, And when I think about the fact that he was a person who lived with integrity and all of the ways that he had to confront the systems that did not want to permit him to tell the truth about who he is, how he believed in the common good, and they wanted to shrink him by labeling him a communist, or just all of those things, and how he stood tall and his legacy is strong, and you walk in that. That is absolutely amazing, Delvin. I am super excited. Now, are you in North Carolina right now?
Yes, ma'am.
When you call yourself a son of the South too, like, I love that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like when I hear that, what I hear is traditional values. I hear someone who still says, yes, ma'am, yes.
Yes, ma'am. I know no other way.
I know
regardless of age.
exactly, just like, but again, the terms that you use to describe yourself, they paint a full-on picture. And I'm so excited to like that you joined in. As a matter of fact, for everyone who has chimed in, the three who wanted to represent for the group, I feel super honored that y'all spoke up, and also nervous, like, oh my God, I was in here with these giants, but I walk as a giant as well. So all is well. I was like,
Indeed.
I'm with my family. Thank you for chiming in.
No problem. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, listen, one final story before I let you go. And this story has to do with the fact that whatever story you choose to tell, you get to pick, you get to decide what that looks like, because it represents your brand. When I was serving as a writer in residence on a West Phoenix High School District, I was doing, I think this was a creative writing course. And of course, like when you're working for school districts, they have state standards that you have to honor and that sort of thing. And so for creative fiction, creative writing, it has all of these different components. Well, one of my assignments was to participate in narrative storytelling. And the prompt was this. I had my students, directed them to please write a story about their scariest experience or their funniest. My student, Felicia Ibarra, 10th grade, loved my class, loved Miss Rhone. And she comes to my desk and she says, Miss Rhone, I have a story that is both my funniest and my scariest. Can I please tell that story? And I'm thinking, no, Felicia, that story is going to be like 25 pages. I'm not trying to read a 25-page story. Felicia, just pick one, your funniest or your scariest. Now, I was concerned because Felicia, while she was a very excited student, she wasn't like one of my more gifted ones. And so that's why I feared that it was going to be too long. She was going to basically write her autobiography. And that was not the assignment. It was write your scariest or your funniest. And she said, please, Miss Rhone, trust me. Let me write let me tell the story. So I relented. And this is a story that Felicia told. When she was 9 years old, she was a 4th grade Girl Scout. And she was a part of a troop that was a school troop. And they met after school in one of the empty classrooms. Felicia is in one of her troop meetings. She raises her hand and asks to be excused to go to the restroom. Troop leader excuses her. She goes to the restroom. She washes her hands. And as she's exiting the restroom, she pushes the door, but it won't budge. She pushes again, still won't budge. She begins beating on the door, yelling, help, help. No help comes. So she decides to take a seat and to wait for the janitors to come in. Suddenly the lights go out. They were set on a timer, so they went out the same time every day. But that meant that no one was going to be coming in until the next day. And she is panicked at the thought of having to spend the night in her elementary school bathroom. And she's crying and she's wondering, why hasn't her troop leader come to look for her? And as she is in this panicked state, she says that she began to pray. And Felicia said that God answered her prayer with this one directive: pull the door, Felicia. Pull the door, Felicia. Felicia goes back to the door, she pulls it, it opens, she returns to the troop meeting. You see, she was never locked in the bathroom. There are two things that I know for sure after hearing Felicia's story, reading her story. The first is that when you are going in one direction, when you're pushing the door and it's not budging, pull the door, change the directions and see where that gets you. But the second thing is, no matter how gifted is your producer or whoever it is that's trying to get you to tell a particular story that they want you to tell, you are in charge of the stories that you tell. If you say this is the one that must be told for this particular occasion, so be it. May it be at your word. I am Alexus Rhone, and it has been my extreme pleasure to be here with you today. You can reach out to me on my website, alexusrhone.com. I would normally have my social media channels up, but at the first of the year, my Facebook page was hacked. And my Instagram account was like shut down and all that kind of stuff. And so I am no longer on those platforms, but you can find me on Twitter, where all of the other reverently irreverent folks are, as well as on LinkedIn. But my website is indeed a way to reach me. Again, thank you so much for joining. And thank you, Alicia and RTP, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Bye.